So proudly we hail, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the path.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Freedom Network. I am Gary, your host, about to guide you through an hour of politics, fun, debate, excitement, and who the heck knows. You never know when you're live what's going to happen. But this could be a good, explosive show. I have a lot of passion about what we're going to talk about tonight, which all revolves around freedom and the Constitution. You spoke, and I listened. I got the emails. They were peppering in. When are you going to have another show about the Constitution? When are you going to have another? I get it. And I got my others that like the local. Well, if you love the local, you can always call and talk about local. Next week, I believe it's next week on the 15th. Is the 15th a Wednesday? I believe it is. Anyway, next week, I believe it is. We will have Joe and we will have Mike from the school committee back on the program to talk local Northbridge politics as we dive back into the new school debate that is out there in town. So you can certainly load up some questions and you can certainly email me, but the email is active. Best is to do it live while it's happening. But if you do have anything that you want to send along in advance, I'm certainly able to read it and hopefully get that information on to them. Anyway, Constitution for freedom at gmail.com is how you get into the email. That puts you right up here on half my screen. The other half is dedicated to show content and the news wire and see what's going on out there in the world. You can certainly call in. We love to call in. You come right here to this very phone. We are old school right here at NCTV 11. That's right. That's right. We bring it right in. Jerry Williams, actually, many of you may know the name. Some of you may not. Actually invented talk radio. This man invented talk radio. He used to take the call like this. He would take the phone and he'd call and he would listen like this. He'd say, "Hi, it's Jerry, WRKO." And he'd sit there like this and he'd listen. And then he'd say, okay. So he'd say, so the caller is saying, and he would then paraphrase what the caller had said, and then he would answer the question. This was before you could put somebody online like we can today. Just, you never know what you're going to learn here. You never know. Incidentally, I was on the Jerry Williams show with Barbara Anderson. That's when I met Barbara Anderson, Chip Ford, and that was back during the seatbelt campaign, actually, is when I met them. Anyway, we do also have groups on Facebook, so you are more than welcome to join them. Easiest way, send me an email. If you send me an email, I will just send you back a link to it, which you can then copy, paste, and go to, or just click on, however you want to do it. Makes it much easier than trying to put it up on a screen or anything like that. But we do have a Freedom Network group, and we would love for you to be in on it. All opinions welcome there, just like they are here. Lots of debate goes on there. And in other places, there's town pages. I know a lot of you love the town stuff. I hope you're in all the town pages because you know what? There's a lot of them. I've been learning more and more that there's more and more of them. Hey, what are you going to do, right? You know, next week, when we have Joe and we have Mike back in, I will definitely gather any information that we had from the last time that came in and follow up with it. I did send some information and some citizen concerns that had come in to me over to them, and they did actually have a citizens forum. So we're going to find out how that went. You know, did people engage in it? What was the outcome? How did that all seem to work out? Now, I didn't book any guests for today, but Jim may stop in. I'm hoping he can. He may stop in. I'd like to get his perspective on a few constitutional things, because his perspective and my perspective sometimes match up, sometimes they don't, and that's fine. But, all right, okay, let me say this like 5 times. Okay, I give. What's up with the Red Sox, huh? Is this the team or is this the team? 80 wins. 80 wins. I mean, 80 wins. Come on. I mean, they are on pace. They've only broken 100 games I think not even a handful of times. I know in 1912 I read today, but then there was times more recent, but not that much more recent. They were in the 90s, though. They have won in the 90s. But let's just face it, these guys are going to crush these statistics. Their winning percentage is 702. I mean, wow. Like, what else do you say? But wow, the team is for real. They mean business. They're never done. Look at last night. They are never done. I mean, you go into extra innings, right? And that seems to be where the Red Sox start to excel. Not just, extra innings, but even as they play, they either come out and they're killing you. But you know what? If you can't count these guys out, you can't count them out. They have more come from behind wins. I think we heard last night that there were, 34 come from behind wins. I think that was the number, but don't quote me on it. Anyway, they are just never done. And the Pats having their first pregame tomorrow night. That's going to be some good times for sure. I know a few people that are going. It'll be a lot of fun. It's always fun to go to a Pats game. So, well, how do you think the Pats are going to do this year? Some people are nervous. Some people are nervous. I'm not nervous. I support every single one of our hometown teams, and I hope, feel, and believe that they can win every single time. That's just how I am. Just how I am. But hats off to our teams. They really are incredibly awesome. They really are incredibly awesome. Did I see Jim walk in? Is he in the house? He is in the house. Well, that's fantastic. We're running this poor guy ragged, right? From work, coming here. It's unbelievable. He's pulling up a chair as we speak. Come on in here, Jim.
How's it going, Gary?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Pretty good. How you been?
I've been good. I've been good. I'm just coming back from vacation.
Yes.
I was up in Maine. It was beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful up there. And you know what's funny? I now know while I was in Maine, 3 people I knew on Facebook were in Maine. And now there are friends of mine that live near here, right? Are up in Maine. And another friend of mine's going to Maine the week after. Well, what is this? Everybody's going to Maine now. It's a big thing.
I go to Maine in June every year, too. So,
See? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
Maine's
right.
the place to be.
It is. The people in Maine, it's funny because, what is it? I'm going 150 miles away, and you would think that you just went, out of New England to a different region or somewhere, different country. But they're just nice people. They are. They're just nice people. I have a good time over there. Anyway, we've been.
Did I miss a little sports talk or something?
You did, and I know you love the sports. How about the Red Sox? Come on, tell us. What are you thinking?
Red Sox are great, but I was going to talk a little local sports.
Let's go. Oh, bring it in. See this?
Rumor has it that you were involved in a pool tournament or something.
Oh, you want to talk about that
on
tournament?
Monday? Were you involved in?
I almost won a pool tournament. Yeah. I was this close to winning it, but
who did win that?
Well,
I'm just curious.
Is that how you get the gas money to get over here? I knew there was a reason he came.
Well, as soon as I heard you talking sports, I'm like, oh, I'm going to throw that right in there.
Absolutely. Jim and I are avid pool players where we like to play, and we play against each other a lot. And, it's a win some, lose some kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Gary was working his way to tell you that he's got the lead on our overall match between him and I. But
yes,
that's
said, true.
I did win Monday's
You
tournament.
did win Monday's tournament, which, by the way, was full of people that could really play, which was basically our team.
Right.
And these guys can all play. So it wasn't like you just walked into a bunch of slouches and, took it out.
Who eliminated you, by the way? Was that a Barnicle, too? Not me. It wasn't me.
No,
it
was you.
To play
Yeah, you played me and you beat me.
No.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. See, first his son plays on the team.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so first they fix it because his son's a really good player. So he doesn't want to play me, right? So he's going to have his son come in and tied me down. But I beat the son, right? Son's great. Yeah. Son's arguably probably better than both of us, but he's not here to defend himself. So,
so we'll say we are.
So we'll say we are. And then right up after that, no break, by the way. There was no break. I had to go right into the semifinals, and I did. Jim did very well.
Thank you, Gary.
You did very well. You did.
We can move on to something else now.
You did. I don't know. What is we stopped keeping track of actually we started off, right? We're playing pool. And, this is important things. People want to know this.
Oh, yeah.
And we started off with a score. It's 10 to 9. It's 11 to 14, whatever it was. And then the number got so big that we just started to keep track of the difference.
Right.
So whatever the number was, let's say the number's 10. And if I'm 10, then I have 10 more games. So it's always something to nothing,
Right.
which is a much better way to do it if you have a playing with your buddies.
You get into the hundreds of games. So.
Hundreds and hundreds. I
Right.
mean, it's you can't even.
And after hundreds and hundreds of games, is it 23 or 25 that you're up on me?
Oh, I don't
The
think
spread
it's.
is
I think it's 23.
20-something.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is. I do have a good. I mean, but the problem is that there's no money involved with that. This guy won money the other night, and I will be calling the IRS. But I would definitely rather lose a couple bucks or a pool game than get arrested and charged with insider trading, which happened today.
Oh, see, now that's the thing is I've been working a lot, and I'm not up on what's going on in the world. So that's the real reason I'm here, Gary, is to find out
what the
from
hell's
the
going
Freedom
on.
Network what's going on in the world.
I love it. Well, it's interesting. Christopher Collins, he's a Republican congressman out of New York. He was arrested today, charged with participating in insider trading. And what he did is he sold off the shares of an Australian, an Australian biotechnology type of company before the public disclosure of a failed drug trial.
Okay.
So he knew that it failed.
So he learned that it failed.
And then he sold everything off.
Mm-hmm.
I never could really understand, though.
I'm not-
I guess I do. I get
I have a hard
it.
time
but
finding that
I know.
being
I
a
mean, if you
problem.
know it, so you have to lose your
Oh,
money.
yeah, right. I
So
know.
it's almost like all right. The number is gonna. We're playing roulette. The number is gonna be 26, but no one's allowed to bet on it.
Right.
I mean, how would
Right.
that work? I don't know. But federal prosecutors in Manhattan accused Rep. Collins, 68 years old, of tipping off his son last summer about the result of a multiple sclerosis drug trial. Interesting, very interesting. So he serves, I'm trying to find out where he serves, 27th District, which is Western New York, near Buffalo,
Oh, how about that?
in Rochester.
I should know the name.
You should know the name.
Yeah. I'll be in Rochester this weekend, actually.
And it's funny because they note in this news article he was the first member of Congress to endorse Donald Trump. They have to.
Oh,
throw
absolutely,
that. I can't even. You can't make this stuff up. And this is the Wall Street Journal yet. But I mean, this is in the. It's in the third paragraph. It's no more than 8-9 sentences in. 8-9 sentences in. I
Well,
mean,
they would have headlined it if they could.
it's.
First man to endorse Trump. Accused of insider trading. I mean,
Well-
before they even say his name,
What's interesting too is you notice that I bet you, and this is just my hunch, was that if this guy was a Democrat, then it would say Rep. Chris Collins, a congressman from New York, and then down in the story somewhere it would say Collins, 3-term whatever he is Democrat, and it would bleed it in there.
Right.
But if it's a Republican that gets in trouble, boy, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth word in the whole article. Right? It's just funny. To me, it's just funny. But it looks as though this guy could be in some trouble. But we gotta, I guess, let him go through the process
I suppose.
of the legal system because, and we'll talk about that today in our constitutional talk. But I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's, I think, a boring article. But they do say that he didn't make any trades. It was, I guess, that he tipped his son off.
Yeah.
And then his son made the trades. So then they'd both be in trouble, wouldn't they? According to the congressman's 2016 financial disclosure report, he held a stake in the company at the time, 25 to 50 million.
All right. Well, that's why he's in trouble because he had a stake in the company.
Right.
Now he may or may not have sold off stock himself, but he certainly told his son about it, so his son could dump his stock. Is what it sounds like to me.
It does. That's what it sounds like what they're saying. And other Republican lawmakers, a guy from Oklahoma, a guy from Texas, another guy from Texas, they've also purchased stakes in the company. So it's, like I always tell you folks, it's a club. It's a club. You think the Republicans give two what's about you?
Right.
No, they care about the power that they have and controlling the power. And the Democrats are the same. They're the same. I always say, Jim, you get the big issues. And I try to rattle them off, right? But you got, the constitutionality. You've got the money system, and that whole manipulated farce that it is. You've got the medical industry, the food industry, big, huge things, debt that we get put in constantly, wars that will never, ever end. Never end. Not legally declared wars. You look at those issues, they're all the same. Who's been in charge? Democrats and Republicans. Those are the only people that have been in charge. That's it.
Right.
So when you look at it that way, you'd have to say, I think, as a logical person, that both of these parties are about the same. The
Both
same. Now, they have little things and pet projects and stuff that they want to do, and this one's, and there's a leash. But let's just face it, folks. Somebody's holding the end of that leash. They are on a leash of sorts. They absolutely are. Although Donald Trump did mention the Federal Reserve. And I immediately feared for the guy's life because I think that you could see
Anytime
something.
anyone, yeah. You and I had to talk about that one time about
Yes.
Anybody.
Well,
that's
it's
really
true.
gone
I mean,
after
look,
that.
Lincoln, who, the Civil War, there was so many banking implications, so many of them. And what happened was, history, if you're into the banking history of the United States, treats him both ways because he allowed it in.
Yeah.
He allowed it in.
Right.
And that was a lot about what was being fought over. But then at the same time, afterwards, he saw what it could become and how tight it could control. And he made a speech against what he had just done. Just talking about, we're going to have to watch this. We may have to legislate. We may have to do, whatever it may be. And then he was killed. Now, you can put all the theories behind why and who and all that. The only other president that really talked about that a lot was Kennedy. Now, I know that people say, "Oh God, you're out there," but these are facts.
Right.
These are facts. As a matter of fact, I can't tell you 100% because I'd have to look it up, and I should have before the show, but I didn't. How would
You
I
didn't
know
know
we
you
were
were
going to
gonna
talk
end
about
here,
this?
yeah.
But I think that I remember reading that Ronald Reagan made a speech that had talked about the manipulation of money through what was becoming a really dominant world bank. And he got shot at. Now, I'm sorry, but they can't all just be coincidence. They can't. I mean, I just don't believe it. So I say to myself, a lot of these theories are absolutely whacked out, left field, and I'm very open-minded to alternative theories, but a lot of this stuff just isn't what it seems to be. And to be honest with you, some of it is foolish. Almost it looks like it's placed there to get people to buy into some theory that
some
really
theory. Yeah.
can't. It's just going to spin you in circles. But when you start to see patterns of things, it's like with the Clintons. How many people that are associated with the Clintons have been murdered? Right? Now, I get it. I don't think that Hillary's running around like Goodfellas, whacking guys, that kind of thing. But there's got to be a point where you say to yourself, there's a lot of people. Something stinks there. There's something isn't quite right. But people don't want to do that anymore. And that's kind of, that's where I think we've lost so much of that constitutionality, so much of that pride in the system of government that we have. I mean, we've got elected officials running around telling people that this is a democracy. This is a threat. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. Well, we don't have a democracy. If we had a democracy, Hillary would be president. She won the popular vote. We don't have a democracy. It's just not what we have. You can find traces of it, especially in towns. It's especially in towns, a little bit in states. I mean, let's face it, the Congress, either house, and both combined have more power than any. Because even if they lose in the Supreme Court, they could amend the Constitution. That Congress can do it. They can change and make anything happen. The president doesn't have nearly the power if they're unified. The problem is they are unified. They're just unified against us. they're on the other side. I mean, come on. When we can go to cite one of the best examples is the food. The food is one of the best examples of the fact that they can't sell certain food in America. I mean, in Europe, that they can sell in America because of the chemicals in it.
Right.
They just don't allow them. The French fries in England are made with 6 or 5 less chemicals than they are in America. We just let them do it because it's a payoff, it's a this, it's a that. I don't know why they want to do it. It must stretch it. They must make more money off of it. But at the end of the day, the food supply we have here is rough and not allowed in many, many other civilized and uncivilized and even communist countries where they don't care about the people, supposedly, like
Right.
we may,
Yeah, yeah, right,
right?
right, yeah.
They're communist countries. They've banned half of the things that we have, half of these sweeteners and artificial stuff that they just, because, in my opinion, it absolutely helps to perpetuate the entire medical industry, which is a huge, huge contributor to Washington. I mean, that's what I mean. You can't. Do I know exactly that this does this or this? No, but when you see all these things in motion, and you start to see things like, the control that they'll have through inflation. Look at inflation. I mean, I don't know. I think my father bought his house, split level ranch on a half acre of land, whatever,
16
standard.
16,000.
I think they might have overpaid
14,
it, 22
yeah.
or something, but maybe they got maybe my father got the enlarged one, and there were two models. He probably got the bigger one. He was psyched to get out of the city. I mean, he was
Listen,
pumped.
my parents' first house was like 16,400 or something like that, and their mortgage was under $200 a month or some crazy thing.
And what did they
And I'm
make?
sure,
I mean,
well, he was a,
but I
he
don't
was
think
a 30-year GM guy, so even back in the beginning there, he must have been.
I think he
I
made.
don't know what I mean. He probably was making what the house cost, his salary,
I would think.
right, or something close
I
to
would
it,
think.
right?
I know. You're making $500. In 1965, if you were making $500 a week, you were doing great.
Right.
That $500 would really go pretty far for you.
Yeah.
Now, if you're making $500 a week, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I mean, either you're going to need assistance, or you're going to need to team up with somebody
Right.
and be able to then afford to live.
Right.
So what happens? People go on assistance. Well, once you're on assistance, in many cases, it's tough to either get off or to equal that assistance. So it's like, well, why would I want to do this if I just kept doing this? Then it would save me a few bucks.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a no one's sitting in a chair saying, okay, now do this and this will happen. But I think that it's almost like the founding fathers warned that it was actually the anti-federalists, really the anti-federalists that warned that the government would just become of its own, and it would just become like a siphon. And it wouldn't be that this person is necessarily a dictator, but it might mean that the government becomes so powerful and so cumbersome that it just sucks everything right into it, and then the system just goes on and on and on, John. I don't know. I really don't know. So we had a request for some gun talk.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Talk it is.
I like a little gun talk.
I
We'll
know
talk
you do.
about that for a minute. I don't think they really understand what the Second Amendment means out there, though. I just don't think they understand that it wouldn't even be there if it wasn't for the anti-federalists. First of all, it wouldn't even exist. But it has nothing to do with the target practice. It has nothing to do with the hunting. Somebody said to me, I want to hear your rant again about guns. It's pretty funny. I'm like, I have a coined
So
rant now?
the key word there is rant.
Rant.
So,
Yeah,
right.
they
So it's
want me to
not-
rant. What can look, I'm here for the people. You want me to rant? I'll rant. No, but I mean, it really doesn't. It has nothing at all to do with that. It has everything to do with being able to protect yourself. Being able to protect yourself from your government, and being able to protect your government from takeover.
From takeover, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's ensuring that the people, you, me, you out there, the people, can't be easily subjugated by any other entity, be it a rebel force within a state, be it one state trying to take over another state, the 3 states trying to take over the federal government, a rogue general, that just decides, you know what, I'm just going to go be king. I mean, I have all these people under my command. This is why it exists. This is what it was. The military is only supposed to be large enough to stop an initial invasion.
Right.
I mean, when you read the Federalist Papers, you can find all over them. But I try to get the numbers right. But it might be in 47, which I grabbed a piece out of. But it might be in 47 where it talks about an actual percentage for a standing army that the federal government should have. Because the anti-federalists were very concerned that standing army could grow too large and then turn on them.
Right.
So, I mean, the military, that's it. And then the public is supposed to go join. See, don't forget, we're only a defense setup. We're not offense. We're not set up for offense. Well, the intent was never for offense. And we have a lot of offense. Let me
now
tell you,
we
we have
do.
a lot of offense.
Yeah.
So does that mean that they would never send help if a country was in trouble or this, or something like that, absolutely, I think that they would have. Look, they sought and got help from France.
Right.
They
Yep.
obviously would do it, but they never envisioned that we would go and do what we're doing now. I mean, they couldn't even fathom this military complex that we have, never mind that the world has.
Sure.
But, it's just, to me, the whole gun thing just isn't as complex as people want to make it. It never was complex. They made it complex, Jim, by making all these laws and trying to rewrite or interpret.
Interpret. That's the key
dangerous
there.
word, isn't
Yeah.
it? It really is. They knew that if there was such a large military, that it would be used. Now, some people say, it's interesting because some people will say that it's a military of the people from the states. So why would they ever attack the states? So that's not what they meant. But what they meant, again, read the Federalist Papers, and you'll know that they felt, and I think that it was Jay was the guy's last name, that wrote several essays in the Federalist Papers, but was not a writer. He was an idea guy. He's one of the very little known people in our history. But Jay had talked about, and I jotted it down, such a large military would be used for offensive policing activity around the world. I mean, that's, pretty good. I mean, it's 2018.
Some insight. There's some insight there.
It's 2018. We do have a world that's changed, Jim. Is our military too big? I don't know. Maybe it is. But I'm not as concerned with the size of the military, but rather the scope and what we use it for. To me, the size of it, I think it's a big, bad world out there. A lot bigger and badder than it was in 1750 or 1780 or whatever, year you want to pick in the 1700s. I mean, they couldn't imagine, I don't think, what other humans would do, not be capable of, because I think that they know that technology would always advance,
Right.
but that they would actually do the things, that they do, because what they saw mostly was stories. They didn't have what we have, the media.
Sure.
They couldn't see it. They didn't know. So the average person that didn't go to war didn't really know what war was.
Yep.
So I don't think that they all.
So you're saying they didn't have the insight on the evil?
I don't know that
potential
they
evil
did.
that
I think that they saw a lot of evil. They saw it through their ancestors. They saw it through the Crusades. They saw it through the kings, through the queens, through the church. They did. I mean, they saw some awful things. But where that translates into we could blow the whole world up today, that I don't know that they thought about when they really dug in and they said, what would the military be used for? I don't think that they fathomed that we would go to the Middle East and fight with no declaration of war
Right.
for 20 years.
Yeah.
For 20 years with no declaration of war. See, I don't think that's what I mean when I say I don't think that they thought that our representatives would ever allow that.
Sure.
I mean, they were talking about a standing army of 30 to 500,000 people. That's it. For defense. They never wanted it to be for offense. Unfortunately, you do have to have some offense in this world. And that maybe they didn't have all the foresight on. Look, they certainly were flawed people. But we digress. Let's go back to guns.
Well, they were running around in wigs and stuff like that, weren't they?
Yeah, they were crazy. They were in dresses and they were in wigs. I mean, everything comes full circle, folks. Everyone's all up in arms about guys wearing dresses. Guys were wearing dresses just a few hundred years ago. I don't know why everyone's so aggravated about it. Go ahead,
The Scots still do,
Right.
don't they?
I think they do. I think they do. I mean, the people, if you're anti-gay, are you anti-John Adams if he wore a little dress one day? You know what I mean? I don't know,
And put a wig on?
I don't know. In a
See,
nutshell.
I'm bringing your show down.
That's
You
all
said,
right.
"Oh, Jim, come on the
Yeah,
show."
come
You
on
bring
the
it."
show.
I
You,
love it.
you bring it, It can't always ride up here, Jim. But your government can't enslave the citizens. That's the point of the Second Amendment. That's really it in a nutshell. There is no state law, in my opinion, that's constitutional that is regarding guns. I just don't see how a state can make the impeachment into the federal protected mandate. So, for example, a state can't say no freedom of speech. A town can't say no freedom of speech. A right that's protected in the Constitution is supposed to trump anything that the states may do. And then what wasn't in there for the content, the states get that. But what's in there, the states don't get. They don't have a say in it. I don't understand
This show
that.
exists because your freedom of speech was taken from you, Gary.
It's true. That's very true, actually.
I
Because
know.
I was not allowed. I mean, the show existed, but it moved 52
Right.
miles northwest,
Northwest.
more west than
More
north.
west than
but,
north. Yeah.
you know, all the way over here, just so I could speak my piece, because I wasn't allowed to in a place that, in all honesty, I really should have been allowed to.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, of all places,
Yeah.
to not be able to speak in a government setting, in a
town meeting.
town
Go ahead.
meeting.
Throw it out there. Town meeting.
at times, right, at a time for public.
When that's what it was
Discourse.
all about. Yeah, that's what it was all about.
No, that's all I got.
Out of here,
Mr.
Rosenberg.
Mr. Rosenberg. Yeah.
I remember it well.
Yeah, I do too. Then that was it. I had to come up, and then I met the wonderful people.
I think the
at
show
this.
was within 3 weeks of that.
Yeah, it probably was within 3 weeks. I went to Tim, who, if you remember the old email, the Tim or Gary, I went to Tim, who actually was the one that started the whole thing, was a producer. And I said, look, we got to move the show. He goes, why? I explained the situation to him, and Tim's a great guy. You know, he's like, all right. He's like, let's do it. And he tried to come up here and stuff.
Yeah,
but,
he
you know,
was- he tried
it
to
was,
at first,
it was
yeah.
really far.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it wasn't for Tim, the Freedom Network wouldn't be there. I mean, the shows I did on the radio years and years before weren't the Freedom Network. You know, they were just Gary BSing about politics. You know,
right.
I mean, I don't know.
With
But
your old man, right?
my father was on. As a matter of fact, way back, my father was on in a station WPEP in Taunton, and he was the morning guy. And I used to produce his show, which was a lot of fun. Then we actually networked out, and we got a show on about 4 or 5 different radio stations,
And
and
you
that was
sold
great.
airtime
We
or
were
something,
selling
right?
our own time. We were making money, you know. And then they just drove the price up on us because I think we were selling more than their salespeople were selling on the show. But they would broker time back. Not even today you can do it. You know, you listen to the radio. All right, you go on Saturday morning and you hear some guy doing that show that only comes on once a week. If it's not on a network, all right,
Yeah.
but it's local to the station, they're paying for the time. It's called brokering time.
Right.
They broker out the time, then they turn around and they sell the time. So they might pay $300 for an hour. Maybe they can go out and sell $500 worth of commercials,
Sure.
and they make $200. Well, if you do that over and over and over, though, that's what my father and I had done.
It's a volume business.
It is a volume business, and it was a lot of fun. It was funny. I used to have a show where I used to talk some politics and play music. It was the Greats with Gary. I did an overnight.
I can only imagine
right?
what you were playing.
Oh, you can only. I was all 50s music.
Yeah.
That's all it was 50s music. It was great. It was the first time I ever did it, I played because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I went to school for it, right? And you know, I'm ready to go, and I say, all right, let me get my stuff together, my first show, and everything I played everything I had from that artist.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
So after the show, the station manager, who
You
used
might
to
wanna-
be, he used to be the entertainment reporter for KABC in Los Angeles, who came east for a break from reality out there because it was such an intense job, and got involved with this little radio station, and it was like a hobby for him. I mean, I
Sure.
think he had retired, and he comes in and he goes, so
Listen, rookie.
are you gonna play all the artists together every week, or was that like a double hit 2 for day? And I'm like, well, no, of course I wouldn't, because I could see that he didn't want me to do that,
Right.
you know. But it was those experiences were fantastic, and talking politics on all those local avenues was always a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Always a ton of fun, and whether it was in Brockton, we were in Taunton, we were in Middleborough, we were on an FM station. 95.9 Talk and Rock is what we did, and that was great. Ed, guy that owned that, a sainted human being. All right, enough about me. You're making me blush here. Anyway, where the hell we were, I don't know. We're talking about
Something
states
about
making gun laws.
Exactly,
they can't
yeah.
make gun laws. I mean, could Massachusetts say there's not going to be any more free press? We're going to start licensing your ability to speak freely.
Right.
So if you don't come get a license from me, you can't have freedom of speech anymore. Of course they can't do that. You know, Maine, we talked about Maine. They can't say, hey, no more do cause. We're out. We're out. No more do cause. No, they can't. No, of course they can't. So I don't know why our Supreme Court, I mean, I know that they do, and I understand what they um, tried to sell is for the reason for that, but I would like to see that taken up again as a more conservative court starts to seat. I would like to see that taken up again. Does that mean that I think that there should be no gun laws? No, I don't. I don't. I think that, you know, one of the founding fathers, I'd have to look it up for you, said lawful citizens of sound mind should own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I hear lawful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be a criminal. A citizen, you got to be a citizen.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you're a lawful citizen of sound mind, how do you determine that? You got to run some kind of check on something. You got to.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just open up and just say anybody can come and buy a gun. I don't think that in the old days, you know, we would, if we were in this town in the 1700s, we would say, hey, you know, Jimmy, he can't have a gun. Don't anyone give him a gun. He was shooting out there the other day. He was shooting near the houses, this and that. He can't have a gun anymore. And that was it. Jimmy couldn't have a gun anymore. But Jimmy didn't go shoot the schools up. Jimmy didn't go do any of that stuff, right? Jimmy just didn't get a gun. I'm not saying that times don't change and things don't have to change, because they do.
Yeah.
And I think that you should have to at least, the sound mind thing's a little scary, because who can tell you?
Who's going to make that determination?
Who makes that
What
determination?
makes that determination?
That's right.
Yeah.
Very scary. So I
Yeah.
think that it would almost have to be really debated out.
Yeah.
That would. But
What medication? You know, somebody
Right.
prescribed any medication. It could be. Oh,
It could be.
Does that fall under the hat? So.
I think the first two, lawful citizen,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's easy to tell. We should be able to tell that in 15 minutes in this
Right.
country. With the technology the way they have it,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. The government's watching my show, not on TV, right through the computer, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Checking on every little thing everybody does. So,
Yeah, no, listen. I had to bid a job on an army base recently, and I had to sit outside, give them all my information. They ran me for about 15, 20 minutes, and before they'd let me in. So.
right. So, I mean, whatever they're trying to figure out, I would think that, you know, we should be able to have, a one check if we're going to do anything. If we're going to do anything, it should be one. It shouldn't be that in Massachusetts you can do this, and in Oklahoma you
right,
can do
right,
that, and in this
right.
state you can do that. It's just crazy. Michael emails in, hello, hope you're doing well. I fully agree with you with the gun laws and how they should only be created by the federal government. Do you think social issues like same-sex marriage and abortion should be run by state laws or federal laws? Personally, I think state laws. Thanks, Mike. Great question, Mike. You always want to make me think, man.
Yeah.
This guy's great. I love it. Love it. All right. I would say that they should be state issues. And the reason I'm going to say that is because it doesn't mention it in the Constitution.
Right.
So if it doesn't mention it in the Constitution doesn't govern that. Don't forget, the Constitution is not a rule book for you and me. It's a rule book for the government. So it doesn't grant me anything. It protects what I have. I am born with a right to defend myself. I am born with a right to speak, to articulate, to say what I want, to basically do what I want, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. I can do what I want to do. That's freedom, and that's what they try to protect. So I would say that the state would have to deal with all that, especially marriage, because now you're getting into religion. And the federal government shouldn't have anything to do with religion. They shouldn't endorse it, and they shouldn't say you shouldn't have it either. I mean, I'll tell you something. In America today, it seems like as long as it's Christian, you can make fun of it. You can bash it. You can do anything you want. If it's any other religion, though, all hell breaks loose, and everybody's labeled and all these
Sure, yeah.
terrible things.
Yeah.
But the Fed shouldn't be involved. No, I'd say, Michael, same-sex marriage up to the states. The federal government should have nothing to do with marriage anyway, and abortion, I think, should be run by, I think, in all honesty, I have a tough one on abortion, man.
Yeah.
I am going to tell you something. Here's how I come down on abortion personally. All right, and I speak it just from the heart.
Right.
Personally, I hope and want people to choose life.
Yeah.
That's what I want them to choose. I want the baby to be born. I mean, I do. But you know what? A, I don't think I hold all the cards in that decision. And B, even more importantly, I don't think that the government should have any say as to I think where it is life, I get the life thing, and it is life. You know, it is life. But this is also life. You know, this is alive. I can cut this off right, if I want to, can't I? I mean, I don't know. I get very wishy-washy with it, and I usually come down on get the government out of it completely 100%. I can be pro-choice and choose life. I don't have to be pro-choice and choose, you know, that abortion on demand, for example, or something.
Sure.
That doesn't have to mean that. Being pro-choice they've want it to mean that.
Yeah, because they want one end of the spectrum to the other.
Right.
You're crazy on either end. How could you be so crazy that you would want, just before that baby was going to be born on its own, that it's okay to abort it? And how could you, the day it was conceived, how could you ever think that wasn't a life? So they try to play those ends of the spectrum.
They do, and that's why I just usually, when in doubt, say to the government, all right, not your domain, back off. If there's any doubt whether the government should or shouldn't be involved, they shouldn't be involved. They just shouldn't be there. That's something that should, if there's going to be any rules on it, you got to, I would say, it would have to be a state-to-state thing. Because if you're going to allow a state to outlaw abortion, for example, then you've got to the people have to be able to leave it if they don't want to live that way. Because that's not really, to me, freedom is, it can be rough, Michael. What can I tell you?
It gets sticky with me, Gary. I fall on the other side of it from you.
Yeah.
I agree with you mostly, like that the federal government should stay out of it. My problem with it is that, that life was formed by two, not one.
Right.
And if one chooses not to want to, like if the woman chooses that she doesn't want to carry that baby and born that baby,
Yeah.
it kind of takes away any potential right that the other partner should have in that say. So that's where it could get sticky for me, and I don't like. Again, it takes both sides to create it in the first place. So one shouldn't be the decider. It doesn't matter to me who's carrying it. It doesn't. It just doesn't. So if one
Controversial Jim.
Yeah.
Jim comes down with some controversy today. I love it. No, I'm going to tell you.
Because let's face it, Gary, if it was the other way around, if the female wanted it and the male didn't, I guess the female gets to have it, right? So,
no, it's
do you
definitely.
see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So,
yeah,
I don't like that one party gets to
I think
carry
that
all the cards, that's all.
this is why I say in these tender situations, I don't know that there should be any laws around it at all.
Sure.
Maybe there's just no laws, and maybe that's something that the people handle themselves, and that's what the people do, and that's what you do. You do what you want to do because it's and I agree with you though. I think it almost like the issue exists to create the polarity. We can agree on who makes a decision, and we can disagree on who makes a decision, but that should be for us, the people. It shouldn't be for the government, I don't think, to decide that. I don't think the government should say you can't, and I don't think the government should say you must. I just don't think the government belongs there. Michael says he agrees, but I don't know what he agrees with, so I probably shouldn't have said that. 'Cause
most likely you.
Most likely it's not you. No, I'm just kidding you. All right, Ken emailed in. Ken says, this is long. I'm going to try to get, here's the thing. Ken and I have been having an interesting discussion recently on Facebook about religion in government. And it's been a wonderful discussion, spirited at times, but, respectful, I think, a little humor, a little passion. And I don't know what I'm going to get here, but I know it's going to be a dose of why religion should be in government. And I also know, let me look and see what it is. If he starts off, if he's going to go, I think I know where he's going to go. Nice to mention John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, in his letters to John Murray. I knew it's funny. All right, as to the, I can't read this whole thing because it's going to take a while. On the topic of the gospel, it is explicit. It commands us to obey the higher powers or ruler. It reminds us that he beareth not the sworn in vain, and that he is the minister of God. All right, now, if he is to bear the sworn... All right, so this is John Jay, was a Christian, serving both as vice president of the American Bible Society and its president. He was a member of the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. He did not leave his Bible at home. Now, I've been telling him that you need to leave your Bible at home and pick up the Constitution and govern with the Constitution. I don't think he left his Bible at home, and I think he was wrong. All right, Ken, I'm sorry. I'm not going to agree with you. Just because they did it, it's not right in my opinion because that's his Bible. All right, and like I said to you, I don't maybe agree with his Bible, and I should not be governed by somebody by a Bible that I don't agree with. I just shouldn't, and you're never going to convince me of it. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to convince me of it, and the reason is I can bring you 50 more quotes from people very close to Jay, even people he served with, that would have the exact opposite opinion of him. They were not anti-religion. They loved religion. They prayed in Congress. We pray in Congress today. Right now, today. Well, not today, I don't think. I think they're in recess or something. I don't know. They're always, oh no, it's a state that's in recess. Who can keep track? But but they pray. Be religious. But when you go to make a decision and you say, all right, here's this they want to make a law about X. It doesn't matter what the Bible says. It matters what the Constitution says. Can you make the law? Is it constitutional or isn't it? I'm going to tell you, people say Jesus would be a conservative no, he wouldn't. Okay? First of all, if you read the book that you want to govern with, he would give all of your money away to everybody. You'd have nothing. All right? You'd have to split everything up. No one should be rich. No one should have fortune. Right? Right? I mean, to me, religion is socialism if you are run by it, because it's going to control you, it's going to grab you, and it's great for the people. And I don't care how many emails. I know the 80 that are going to pepper me now, but I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, you went out there on a limb tonight.
I believe, well, not as bad as you. Woo. I bet you I got more about I believe what I believe religiously. I would never say, if I was the president of the United States, well, you know, I don't know, let me see about this law. Well, this law, let's say we're going to make a law about widgets, right? I don't know. Well, let me get the Bible. What does the Bible say about widgets? No, I would not do that because I wouldn't want to force you to live by. If that was the case, if I took my Bible to work and I went to the government, what if I said, hey, you know, I mean, in my Bible, there's no Jesus. So I don't want to see any crosses up anywhere anymore. That's taking your Bible to work. So leave the Bible at home doesn't mean you can't be a religious person. But I would say that Jay probably was a less effective constitutionalist because if he had the Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other, how do you know which one trumps the other?
Right.
And if you're talking about freedom in America, it's got to be the Constitution. Has to be first. Just my opinion. It has to be first. Just has to be. Sorry, Ken. Good guy. Ken's a good guy.
Well, is Ken arguing that the Bible is the foundation of the Constitution?
He has alluded to it. I don't know, Ken. Pick up
because
the phone and just tell us.
I wouldn't completely disagree with.
Oh,
that.
I wouldn't disagree at all. As a matter of fact, you can find a lot. Like I said, these were well. First of all, they weren't. You've got deists. You've got the Christians, which obviously are going to fall very similar in the same. I don't think that they were anything but either huge God-fearing or people, and can you email me the name? I said this to you the other day. Email me the name because a very prominent founding father actually made his own Bible. And he took out all the fire and brimstone, all the craziness in the Bible, and just left all the niceties in the Bible. And this guy helped write the Constitution. And do you think that some of his ideas didn't come out of the niceties of the Bible? Sure they did. But nowhere did any person that signed, any person that signed that, including probably a guy like Jay, I could bring him here right now, I'd love to, and say, you know, do you make a policy decision based on the Bible or do you make a policy decision based on the Constitution? It's got to be 98% of the signers there, right? Are going to say, base it on the Constitution.
Right.
Let the people do what they want to do.
Right.
Let them do what they want to do. But I love the dialogue with Ken. I love the dialogue. I really do. remember we read this once before. I didn't take that much of it. Oh, here he comes. Let me.
Where it's firing back.
Yeah, hang on. Just don't send me too many long ones because I'm coming to the end, Ken. Hang on. Oh, Ken, I can't. There you are. Oh, he sent me Thomas Jefferson. You're a hot dog. You're a hot dog. Actually, and you know what else? Franklin. Look up some of his theories on religion and quotes on religion. This proportion would not yield in the United States an army of more than 25 or 30,000 men. That was the number. If they were to have that standing army. To these would be opposed a militia, amounting to near 500,000 citizens with arms in their hands, officered by men chosen from among themselves, fighting for their common liberties and united and conducted by governments possessing their affections and confidence. It may well, this is a great line, it may well be doubted whether a militia thus circumstanced could ever be conquered by such a proportion of regular troops. Those who are best acquainted with the last successful resistance of this country against the British arms will be most inclined to deny the possibility of it. Besides the advantage of being armed, which the Americans possess over the peoples of almost every other nation, the existence of subordinate governments to which the people are attached and by which the militia officers are appointed forms a barrier against the enterprise of ambition, more insurmountable than any which a simple government of any form can admit of, notwithstanding the military establishment in the several kingdoms of Europe, which are carried as far as the public resources will bear. The governments are afraid to trust the people with arms.
Oh.
This has got to be Ken.
We'll find out.
I think that he's right on his Jefferson. I think it's Jefferson. There is no need to interpret anything, though. Just, what are you going to interpret?
Right.
I mean, that tells you right there. This is, you know how much is in there? It's all in there. Everything we talked about,
Was
really.
it not for you?
It might not be. You know, it's a business. You know, people do call.
All right.
You know, but it might be. You know, you never know. Anyway, I think that when Madison would write things like this, and this came in the 27th, no, what am I saying, the 46th Federalist paper, and it's, you know, it's a lot longer than that, but when you look at some of this stuff, they're talking exactly about what they intended. So when we talked about these armies going all over the place, they warned of it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
They warned of it. You can't say in this framework that they had any inkling that there would be any real restrictions on arms for the people. There's nothing in there to even give a mention of it.
Right.
Really, nothing. You just don't have to figure out what they meant, you know? I mean, there's 300 million guns in America, so they estimate. There's about 325 million people
Yeah.
in America. There are about 13,000 people killed where a gun is used in the last, you know, averages per year. They fluctuate from 11 to 13,000. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people, but we need to understand that, again, I'm going to get
That
people
it's
are
not a
gonna be
lot of
mad.
people?
It's part of the price you may need to pay for freedom. And that may be you, and it may be me, or it may be you. But if that's the price for freedom, you have to start to say to yourself, is it worth it? Well, if you ask anyone that's been affected, it's not worth it. But you can't
No,
ask.
that's not true. There's plenty
Yeah.
that have been affected that would still say, you know what?
You know,
that
you're
was-
probably right about that, Jim. You're probably right about that. I have often said publicly, and I would say it here again, if I ever get shot,
Right.
no gun law in my name.
Right.
None. I don't want any gun laws because of anything that happened to me ever to happen. But when we look deeper into the numbers, we find also that there's over 1,000 gang-related shootings minimum, I think, every year. That's what I could find on the web.
Okay.
So that
So 1,000 of those,
That's right.
11 to 13 are from that.
absolutely. You also find that there are more shootings when you're involved in criminal activity. I mean, does that blow your mind or what? Right? Wow, really?
Who'd have thunk it?
Right. So, meaning that a majority of murders by a gun are people that are not lawful citizens.
Right.
Which we know we were warned about those people having guns in the first place. And when you break it all down, what I see is a country of about 300 million people, about 300 million guns, 13,000 murders. You do the math, because you know what? There's about 5 zeros after the decimal point. You know what I mean? You know, you're talking about a very small number that is hugely significant, but you can't make policy based on that. You just can't. You can't push aside the protected rights of the general population based on such a small percent of the people being affected by something. To me, I just, you know, let's face it, reality is that gun control desires really come from school shootings. If there weren't school shootings, there would be way less gun laws. Would we all agree with that? I think we would. But I hate to say it, but now you're only, I don't know how many have died in the past recent school shootings over the past several years. Is it 500? 500 maybe?
I don't know.
Maybe it's 350, 500, somewhere in there. Absolutely so sad, so heinous, and so terrible. But I'm going to tell you something. You can't make policy for 325 million people based on the
300 to 500
emotions of
people.
500, you know, family. You just can't do it. And I know that sounds cold-hearted to say, but you know what? Freedom is a little bit cold. In times, it is. If you, the everything taken care of for you is not freedom. It's just not the freedom that was intended to be here. It just isn't. I was going to go through the Bill of Rights. I'll save it. You know, I'll save it. Maybe I'll save it for Scott. He's supposed to come back. We're going to talk about the things that we didn't.
So was it my pool victory that stood in the way? My pool victory talk that stood
I
in the
think
way
your
of
pool
that
victory
tonight?
talk might have taken away the
Taken
Bill of
effect.
Rights. What kind of crap is that?
I know, right?
You got it in there again.
I
though.
apologize.
You got it in there again. though.
Yes.
23. Don't forget the 23. Oh,
I
man.
still have a few bucks of that money right here if you want to see it.
Well, we talk about the Bill of Rights. There wouldn't be a Bill of Rights if it wasn't for the Anti-Federalists, because the reality is the Federalists, who are the founders.
Right.
That's not true. There were Anti-Federalists within the group of the founders, people that signed the Declaration of Independence. That were anti-federalists, people that signed the Constitution, people that wrote beautiful essays in the anti-federalist papers about why they didn't want any central government. So the compromise was the Bill of Rights. That was the compromise, was the Bill of Rights. And that's how they got the people to do it. That's how they made it happen. You know, I mean, when you look at the first 10 amendments, and I can't really get into them, but I think I got about a minute here left, so I can't really do anything. But the 10th Amendment, so I want to make sure that I quote it properly. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The Second Amendment, all these things that are in here that we will talk about, this is what they were afraid of. And they were afraid, man. They were afraid. And you know what? They were right. The Anti-Federalists were right.
Yeah.
We'll do an Anti-Federalist Papers show, and that gets even crazier. If I can match them up, the essays, that would be great. Well, for the buffs out there, Ken would like that, right? I would like that. You would kind of like it, you know what I mean? But, I don't want to have 8 listeners. Viewers,
Oh, you have 8 now?
I'm up to 12. Come on. Unfortunately, there's more people that would rather talk about Kim Kardashian's boob job than anything else.
He's hitting you hard.
All right.
All right.
We're going to go. But I'll be back next week. We'll be talking about the schools locally. And hopefully the week after I can get Scott back in here. This has been the Freedom Network. This is Jim. I'm Gary. We will see you next time.
Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight you in